Hello, everyone. My name is Pam Rakansky. I'm the YES facilitator here at the North Suburban YMCA, our YMCA education series. Yay! Today, we have the pleasure of having a talk about acupuncture, demystifying acupuncture with Ladesic. And I'm so excited for this talk. So have you been curious about how this traditional medicine works to heal the body? I have. So we're going to hear about that today. About Al discovered acupuncture after years of struggling with depression in his 30s. Although pharmaceuticals helped for a while, the side effects eventually became worse than his depression. Heeding a friend's advice, Al began seeing an acupuncturist, and his improvement in sleep quality and well-being were almost immediate. It was truly a life-changing experience. Inspired by the power of his own healing, Al decided to leave a long career in real estate to pursue a vocation in traditional medicine and commit the rest of his years working to helping more people out of pain. I know he'll talk more about this, but I did want to give him a good intro. So with that being said, I would like to welcome everyone to today's programming. Welcome, Al.
Thanks, Pam. I want to thank Pam and Kim for allowing me to come here today. And of course, I want to thank all of you for carving out part of your Thursday morning to spend it with me. Hopefully you'll find this informative and worthwhile. But before we start, I did want to talk a little bit about pain, because when you look at the statistics, about 50 million Americans are struggling with chronic pain on a day-to-day basis. And that is equivalent to the total population. If you looked at the total population of New York metro area, Los Angeles, Chicago, and Dallas-Fort Worth, that equates to about the amount of people who are dealing with chronic pain here in the US. And that also equates to about 20% of the adult population. So about 1 in 5 adults are struggling with pain on a day-to-day basis. And of course, pain can come in a bunch of different shapes and sizes, but the most common ailments are these. It's low back pain and or sciatica. It's arthritis. It's migraines. And it's neuropathy, which is the numbness and tingling in your hands or in your feet. And unfortunately, if this pain is never fully resolved, it can actually start to lead to other issues like anxiety and depression. And because we're depressed, we're not sleeping very well. So we end up with some sort of insomnia. And because we're not sleeping very well, we end up chronically fatigued. So if you're somebody currently who's dealing with chronic pain, think about how your life could be totally different if it was pain-free. So maybe it's being able to be more active with a friend, playing a sport. Maybe it's being able to spend more time with your family, being able to play with your grandkids. Or maybe it's just being able to drive yourself to wherever you want to go and being able to get in and out of your car. And today, if you were to go to your doctor, conventionally, your treatment's probably going to look something like this. It's probably going to be a combination of pharmaceuticals and or surgery. And both these things may relieve the pain, it may even resolve the pain, but there is a certain level of risk and side effects associated with both of these options. And just looking at the opioid crisis alone, more than 43,000 Medicare beneficiaries overdosed on opioids just in 2020. And that's 118 people a day in 2020. And so today I'm just offering up another option. And that, of course, is acupuncture. Acupuncture is a natural solution, so there are no risks and there are no side effects. And essentially, I have 4 goals here today. 1, I just want to tell you a little bit about me and my acupuncture story. 2, I hope to demystify acupuncture for you a little bit, explain how it works, what its benefits are. Thirdly, I want to share a couple stories from previous patients of mine and their case histories. And then lastly, I'll give you a quick demo as to what acupuncture looks like. So first off, who is this guy? Well, my name's Al Ladesic. I'm a licensed acupuncturist here in the state of Illinois. I'm also nationally board certified in acupuncture as well as herbal medicine. And the name of my practice is Restorative Acupuncture and Wellness. It's located right on Lake Cook Road, right next to the Portillo's in that 3-story office building. And my story with acupuncture, as Pam alluded to in the introduction, started about 15 years ago when I had been on antidepressants for years. And unfortunately, the side effects from those started to become worse than the actual depression. I had put on 40 pounds, had a lot of chronic fatigue, just felt very apathetic about life in general. And so it started to put a lot of pressure on my work life and my home life. And I knew that if I didn't make a change, that my marriage was probably going to end up in divorce. I mean, my wife never came out directly and said this to me, but I could see the handwriting on the wall. And just at that time, a friend of ours just happened to suggest, hey, Al, why don't you try acupuncture? Because she had been receiving treatment for her arthritis. And so I did. And after about 10 treatments, I started to see these positive effects in my life. I had better mental clarity, my mood was better, and the biggest thing for me was that I was sleeping better. The insomnia was the major symptom that I was dealing with. And so at that point, I became a believer in the medicine, right? Like whatever this is, it works. And so about 7 years ago, I decided to step away from my career in real estate, as she mentioned, and go back to acupuncture school full time because I wanted to spend the rest of my working life helping people with this medicine. And that, of course, is why I'm here today talking to you. And so how does this stuff work? And so in order to understand how acupuncture works, we need to understand what causes pain and illness in the body to begin with. And pain and illness is simply due to inadequate blood flow to some area of our body. And that can be caused by several things. It can be caused by trauma. So say you were in a car accident, you fell down a flight of stairs. It could be due to your lifestyle choices. So maybe it's the type of job you have. If you're a person who's more sedentary, or maybe you have a job that involves a lot of repetitive motion. Or if you're just somebody who doesn't exercise as much as you should, or your diet is not what it should be over time, this is going to have a pathological effect on the body. It could also be due to our emotional state. So if you're a person who's stressed out all the time, or you hold on to negative emotions like frustration, anger, fear, over time, this will start to take effect as pain and illness in our body. And then lastly, it's just the natural consequence of our bodies getting older. Our circulatory system starts to slow down. Our organs don't function the way they used to. Because you need to recharge your body from time to time. I mean, for a lot of us out there, these are your golden years, right? I mean, you're supposed to be aging gracefully, but your body never got the memo. And I'm sure all of you have a cell phone. And what do you do with that cell phone almost every night? You charge it, right? So your body's no different. Your body needs to be charged from time to time. And this is what acupuncture does. It helps to recharge the body so it can function the way it should. And clinically, it's been shown that acupuncture can increase cell energy production by up to 500%. And so when we have this nutrient-rich, oxygenated blood coursing through our body, we don't have pain or illness, we have health. And a classic example of that is a baby. So when a baby's learning to walk, they fall down about 17 times an hour on average. So when was the last time you saw a baby with broken bones or bruises? I mean, you hardly ever see a baby with bruises, right? And it's because they're these little balls of warmth and blood, and so they heal very quickly, even if they get hurt at all. And so acupuncture helps our bodies increase blood flow to those areas of concern. So say, for example, you came to me with low back pain. I place a needle somewhere in your body that shares the same area in your brain as your lower back. What that's doing is it's sending a signal through your nervous system to your brain to wake it up, to say, hey, I've got pain in my lower back. And once the brain realizes this, it starts to release all these natural painkillers called enkephalins and endorphins. And once the pain starts to subside, the body naturally starts to open up the blood vessels to that area of the body. And that's what kicks off the healing process. But for one of those reasons I mentioned, whether it's either trauma, lifestyle, your emotional state, or your age, the body's forgotten how to do this on its own. And so we're retraining that brain and body connection. And so that, in a nutshell, is how acupuncture works. And so next, let's talk about Judy. Judy was a patient of mine. I started seeing her about 2 years ago. And she's a stay-at-home wife in her 60s. And a year before I started seeing her, she got diagnosed with an aneurysm. And so she had to go through an angiogram procedure. And if you're not familiar with that, what they had to do is they went in through her forearm with a catheter so that they could take a look at the blood vessel in her brain. And unfortunately, immediately after that procedure, she started to have excruciating pain in her arm. And so the doctors immediately put her on pain meds, and that worked for a little while, and then it didn't work. And she didn't like the way they made her feel anyhow. And ultimately, the doctors recommended surgery, and she didn't want to undergo another surgical procedure. So she decided she was going to try acupuncture. And so she came to me, and we started treatment. And after several weeks, we were able to completely resolve the pain. And so I just wanted to share with you, in her words, what she had to say about that. She says that I've been dealing with extreme pain and loss of strength in my arm for over a year. I've gone to doctor after doctor and have not had any success. I decided to go see Ladesic as a last resort, and miraculously, I've had so much relief in just a few sessions. I'm now able to do my daily things again. And so that's Judy. Next, I wanted to talk about Lisa. Lisa is a young professional. She's a nurse. So she had a very stressful job, especially during the COVID pandemic. And so she was dealing with a lot of anxiety, stress, depression, but she also had a history of migraines that goes back to when she was a teenager. And so she was looking for a natural solution. She wasn't interested in taking pharmaceuticals any longer. And so she came to me and we started treatment. And in her case, we actually used acupuncture and herbal medicine. And we treated for probably about a month or so. And we were able to knock down her pain by 85% by the time she was done with treatment. And this is what she had to say about her experience. She said, I came to Al with a slew of issues, hoping to avoid more prescriptions and to take on a more natural approach to ailments. He listened to all my concerns and appreciated all my symptoms that I was experiencing. After a few sessions, my migraines decreased greatly, and my need for headache medication also decreased. Acupuncture has helped manage my stress and balance my mood, and I very much look forward to my sessions with Al and would recommend him to all. So I'm sharing these with you, not to toot my own horn. I'm just demonstrating simply the power of this medicine and how it can help. And so one of the common questions I get with acupuncture is, does acupuncture hurt? Because a lot of people think I'm putting syringes into their body, and nothing could be further from the truth. So when you look at this graphic here, you can see an acupuncture needle is about the 100th the size of a syringe. And so when I insert that into your body, typically it feels like a small pinch or a mosquito bite. Sometimes you don't feel anything at all. But then once the needles are in, a lot of people have a overall feeling of warmth or heat. You might feel some numbness or some heaviness. And if you did have any lingering pain, you would just let me know and I would adjust the needle or remove it completely. And some of the other frequently asked questions that I get, especially from seniors, is this covered by Medicare? And currently, Medicare is only covering acupuncture for chronic low back pain. And it has to be administered by a medical doctor. So unless your doctor practices acupuncture, then unfortunately, it's not going to be covered by Medicare. So your next question might be, okay, Al, well, if I came to you, how much is it going to cost? Well, I'm a little different than a lot of other acupuncturists. I don't have a one-size-fits-all fee. So with all new patients, I always schedule a consultation. And then that way that gives us a chance to sit down, have a conversation as to what's going on with you specifically, the nature of that ailment, the severity of it, how long you've had it. It also gives me an opportunity to take a look at your other medical history. And then based on that conversation, I can give you my recommendation as to how I can help. And then the price is based on that plan. So does anybody else have any other questions that I can field?
So if people have some questions, I just have kind of one, maybe,
Mhm.
What do you do for people who have a fear of needles? Like, is there something to like, I mean, because I think maybe it would be like, oh, I would never do that. I have a fear of needles. But
Right.
are there any steps that you would, or
Depending on what's going on with you, we could use other modalities like gua sha, which is it's the scraping of the skin. So say you came to me with like musculoskeletal pain. We could use that. We could also use cupping instead of the needles. So we could start there and try to progress. Or we could use strictly herbal medicine as well.
Pam, I have a question, maybe a comment as well. Hi, Al, how are you?
Hi, is this Kim?
Yes, this is Kim.
Hey, Kim.
Obviously, I've met you before, and you had a really, I thought, interesting backstory of how you got into this. Would you mind sharing?
Oh, I did at the beginning.
Oh, I must have missed it. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I had somebody in my office talking to me. I'm glad you did. I'm really glad. And then I also wanted to just make a comment as well. I know you and I had talked a little bit about my recent diagnosis. I just recently got diagnosed with Crohn's, and maybe you can explain how, like, stuff like that, how acupuncture can help in that sort of way.
Yeah, so for Crohn's, since that's more of an internal issue, I would focus mostly using herbal medicine to treat that. And typically what that looks like is we would go through an intake. So I would ask you a bunch of questions about your disposition. And then this may sound weird, but I take a look at your tongue and I feel your pulses. And based on that information, in Chinese medicine, we identify patterns in the body. And there's typically, especially with Americans, given our diet and our lifestyle, there are some predominant patterns that you always see. It's like 4 or 5 patterns. And it can lead to a lot of autoimmune chronic issues like Crohn's disease. And so we would treat those patterns in a very sort of logical way with herbal medicine. And I think in your case, Kim, you were having some pain as well. So I think you were having some hip pain. So I would tend to use acupuncture to address the hip pain, but to actually address the chronic issue of the Crohn's disease, I would use herbal medicine.
Okay, great. Thank you
Yeah.
very much. And mine's more a vitamin deficiency than Crohn's, because it's a jejunal Crohn's. It's a little different than the norm. But yes,
Okay.
the hip pain is from running. And I know we talked about that when I met with you. So thank you, Al. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
There's a few questions in chat, but I'm going to just jump in with one. And my name says afraid of needles, but that was really just a joke. I'm not afraid of needles. But, okay, the question is, if you are able to access the pain receptors to manage pain, does it do anything to address root cause? And in the context here, I'm thinking like lower back pain. And let's say there's lower back pain because, I don't know, a disc is not where it should be. And now you've managed the pain, but the disc is still the disc. How would you comment on that?
Right. So, so we're using, as I had mentioned before, we're using that neurotransmitter release from the brain to relieve the pain. And that's going to ultimately lead to increased blood flow to the area. So that's going to help heal that area of the body. And so we're using acupuncture, and in the case of low back pain, I would use acupuncture, probably electroacupuncture as well, to help facilitate that. And so we're using the body's own innate ability to heal itself. We're just accessing that. And so if it would be more of a structural issue, and in a lot of cases it can resolve our herniated discs, but if it is more of a structural issue, it may not resolve the issue 100%. But in my experience, I've seen it knock down the pain typically at least 80% over time.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple of questions in the chat. Is there a fee for the consultation?
There is. I typically charge $45, but anybody who's attending here today, if you just let me know that you attended the presentation, I'm happy to waive that fee.
Awesome. Is this treatment just one visit or a series of visits?
Yeah, acupuncture is never a one and done, no matter what's going on with you. And so for acute issues, like say you threw out your back yesterday, moving some furniture around, that's going to take less treatments. That's going to take more like maybe 10 or so treatments. But for a chronic issue, if you've had low back pain for say 10, 20 years, that's going to take more time. So you're looking at probably more like 20 treatments.
How can it help with stress management?
So yeah, acupuncture is a great way of shifting our body out of that sympathetic nervous system, which is that fight or flight nervous system, which is where we tend to be when we're stressed out. And it helps shifts our nervous system back into that parasympathetic state, which is the rest and repair state. And so it accesses the receptors in the brain in order to do that.
You state that pain is caused by inadequate blood flow. How does that differ from neuropathy?
Neuropathy?
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, neuropathy. So neuropathy is also caused by inadequate blood flow. It's gotten to a point to where the nerves are starting to die off in that area of the body. They're damaged. And so obviously we're using blood flow. We're using acupuncture to increase blood flow to that area of the body to help repair that tissue. And it's also been shown that acupuncture can help regenerate those nerves as well over time.
Kim says, thanks for waiving the consulting fee. Yay. How much does the average visit treatment cost?
So yeah, it's probably on average, it's about $99 a session.
And then I got told not neuropathy, NAPRAPATHY.
NAP.
RAPAPA. NAPRAPATHY.
I'm not sure what, are
Okay.
they talking about like somebody who works with connective tissue, a naturopath?
Maybe if they want to ask more, how can it help with live detoxification, with liver detoxification?
Yeah, so once again, that's an internal issue. So I would use herbal medicine for that to help detox the liver.
Yes. Yes. NAPRAPATH. Naturopath.
Yeah, naturopathic. That's somebody who works with connective tissue. So they use a manual technique to help I'm not sure exactly what their technique is, but I know they help to, it's basically like a specific type of massage that they use to help stimulate the fascia in the body to stimulate blood flow.
Any other questions? Or did we answer them the most? All right. Or offshoot of chiropractic. All right, I think we're good for questions for right now.
Okay. So I did want to share one thing with everybody. I'm hosting what's called an acupuncture happy hour. So that's on April 20th from 5:30 to 6:30. And this is strictly just focusing on de-stressing. It's a stress relief treatment. So this is perfect for somebody who might have a fear of needles, who never had acupuncture before, because I'm only going to be using 4 needles on the body. And then you get to rest for 20 minutes with the needles in. And so it gives you a real sense as to what a typical acupuncture session would look like. So if you're interested in that, it's $20 for the 20 minutes. And all I ask is you reserve a spot, because I do have limited space here in the office. And so the number to reserve that is that number there. It's 847-607-9957. And so lastly, I'll give you a quick demo. So if you could see my hand here, I'm going to be using, actually, I'll stop sharing. And if you could see my hand here, I'm going to be using this point right here, which is large intestine 4. And so this is known as the command point for the head. So if you came to me with headaches, migraines, TMJ, trigeminal neuralgia, Bell's palsy, this would be one point that I would use. And it also helps upregulate the immune system in the body. So if you were to come to me with a cold, a flu, allergies, this would also be a point that I would use. And so I would start off by just swabbing the area with some alcohol. And then this is the acupuncture needle. It's inside a guide tube. So I just place it over the point. I tap the needle in, and then I advance it. And that's it. And I would do that probably 6 or 8 more times throughout your body, depending on what you're coming in to see me for. And then you get to rest for about 30 minutes. And we let the body do what it does. And that's all I have for you guys.
Awesome. I think there was just one more question. How deep do the needles go? In other words, do the needles enter the spinal fluid?
Oh, no. Nope.
Figured.
Not even close.
Yeah, and I think from the demo we saw that too.
Yeah.
Right. Any other questions from the group?
A lot of great questions.
Yeah. And thank you. All right. With
Good stuff.
that-
Thank you, Pam. Thanks for organizing.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you again to Al Ladesic for talking to us today. Our next talk is going to be Thursday, April 20th for runners healthy running at any age. So talking about how to not get so injury prone running. So that's our next talk. Thank you, Al, for and that's at noon. Thank you, Al, for talking to us today. We look forward to hopefully having you come to chat with us again sometime, and take advantage of going to go see Al for a session. Yeah, check it out.
All right.
And then thank you. The YMCA Education Series is free and open to all. Check us out online at nsymca.org. Thank you again. And oh, one last question. Does it make the nerves tingle? I tried dry needle therapy, but I wasn't comfortable with the feeling.
Yeah, sometimes there is some tingling, some numbness.
A little bit of numbness.
Yeah.
But I'm sure you will talk that through. So, all right. Thank you again, everyone. Have a great day, and we'll see you all later. Thank you, Al.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.